thank you so much for being here, Aimee. Really appreciate that you've taken the time. Just last week, or was it the week before, you were on the AM talk show talking about your award. Obviously you must be a very busy person. So once again, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So we have a list of questions that our relievers prepared and wanted me to go through some of them with you. So I'll just jump straight into it. Tell us a bit about your background and your journey into EC.
Sure. So I walked into early childhood education when I was 17. I had finished high school and not really sure what I wanted to do. I'd thought that nursing might be a way to go, or join the Air Force and follow in the footsteps of my dad. But our family had a friend who owned a childcare centre, so she said, "Why don't you come and work for me for a while?" So I did, and so I started there as a teaching assistant. It was small, family-owned, about 40 children max, and very relaxed. Back then, in the late 90s, there, it was regulated, but it was very different to how it is now.
Right.
And so it was quite relaxed. I was the cleaner and the gopher, really.
Yep.
And I ended up going into training with NZTC.
Right.
At the time, they'd just started. They'd just
Right.
launched their
In Green
program.
Lane? Yeah.
It was at Grafton.
Grafton,
Yeah,
right. Okay.
so up opposite the hospital.
Okay.
And so I was student number 95 in the first intake.
Yep.
And back then the degree in early childhood education didn't exist, so it was a diploma.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I've held ever since.
Right.
And considered upgrading many times, but did my training and then decided to do a little bit of travelling. Ended up working for nzski.com and running their childcare program up on Mount Hutt for a season, which was really cool, working in the snow. We had lots of international children.
So when you say a season, how long's that season for?
So the season ran from, I think I went up there around about May and came back down around about August.
Okay.
So
4 months.
Yeah. But it was a great experience, and ended up back in Christchurch. Mm-hmm. And worked for a really large company in Christchurch, and that was where I initially fell into leadership. So started working in a one of the smaller of her centres.
Yep.
And the owner at the time, she came around one day and she'd read through my CV and asked to meet with me. And before I knew it, I was standing in the middle of one of her, if not her largest centre, in the centre of Christchurch.
Okay.
On Salisbury Street.
Through a CV.
Reading through my CV.
Reading through a CV, okay.
Yeah, so, and there wasn't, my only real leadership experience in the CV was working for nzski.com.
Right.
So she really gave me a chance to take on that leadership role. And so I worked there for nearly 6 years.
In this large centre in Christchurch. And what was your position?
So my position was centre manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
After how many years experience being a teacher?
Yeah, well, I'd come into teaching at 17, so it wasn't very long. Yeah, it was about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was pretty young, but I think she obviously saw something in me that I wasn't sure I had or didn't really recognise in myself. And it wasn't easy. I walked into a leadership position, had most of the staff turned over in the first few weeks, not necessarily because of me,
right.
but I don't know, maybe, but often that'll happen.
Yeah,
so if there's a big management change, often teachers see an opportunity to move on or make a change themselves. So I hired a pretty much a new team and held that team for the better part of 5 years, with very little turnover.
Yeah.
So that team was an incredible team, and I'm super proud to say that we all, quite a few of us still talk and still have a connection after all this time, which I think is amazing.
Yep.
So then that large company was sold, and I stuck it out for a little while.
With the new owner.
Yeah, it was a really large corporation that came from Australia, so it was really hard to sort of continue working when it didn't really fit with my philosophy.
Okay.
So I came back to Auckland, ended up back at a small childcare centre, again family owned, and ended up managing that centre for again around about 6 years. Great centre, loved it, but like a lot of smaller privately owned childcare centres, they often end up having to sell, or it's pretty difficult to survive when you're just one standalone little centre. So that's how I ended up at Unitec.
Okay, yeah.
And again, Unitec was a major shift in my career.
Okay. Because is that just one centre in Unitec?
There's two.
There's two. So you looked after the two centres?
Yeah. So they are both owned, they both come under Unitec Early Learning Centre.
And it's really for the lecturers and the students.
Yeah. So the staff of Unitec and the student children and
public
community as well, the local community, and it really was. Again, another really big shift in my thinking. And I think what Unitec did for me was it allowed me to grow in a different direction with regards to leadership. And so I'd been in private childcare for my entire career, and suddenly I was in a not-for-profit organisation. Unitec, which was completely different. And so I'd never really had this experience with, people being under conditions of a collective agreement and learning different ways in which, these not-for-profit centres operate. And it really was exciting to be part of something different. Also, the team that I inherited at Unitec were just incredible. Yeah, so I actually, through my entire career, have worked with some pretty amazing people. And in the centres, and I haven't worked in very many centres, but in the centres that I have worked in, you just pick people up along the way who are just so amazing. And that is what keeps the positivity in early childhood education, is those people. It does come down to the people that are working with the children.
Yeah. If there's one thing I have noticed or felt in my dealings with you in the past, it has been that I do get there's the sense that you do look after your people really well, and hence that's why. I'm not surprised when you said when you were a centre manager back in Christchurch and the turnover was really low. I'm pretty sure the turnover was also pretty low back in Unitec. I think I get this feeling that you look at it from a very broad spectrum and you go, what do I need to do to look after my team? Because if I look after my team, they'll look after the children. And it's not just the one issue. It's a multitude of things, and I think you are quite aware, observant of what those are, and intervene and try to make it all work and gel together. So no.
Look, I certainly try, and I think that being open and transparent with the people that you work alongside is super important. And one of the questions that someone's asked is what ingredients make a great teacher, and there's lots of things that make up a great teacher, but what makes a great leader is the ability to get to know your people. You cannot lead a team of people until you know them and you take the time to know them, and it's not just about how they work, but also what's happening for them at home. You want to be in a position where if there is something going on for one of your kaiako, you want them to be able to come and talk to you about that, because we all have things that happen in our lives, and your work is your home away from home. And most childcare centres would have that as part of their philosophy, is that children come and this is their second home, and it should be the second home for your people too. Because
when you think about it, though, actually, work being your home away from home, and to a large degree, you actually spend a lot more of your quality time at work, because when you go back home, you have the kind of few hours to sort of prepare dinner or get the kids ready and then sleep or you just rest, So but the quality time, the time when you're actually doing the day, you're awake and alert, you're actually at work.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So you're putting in, a lot of your effort between 7:30 and 5:30, which is when you are at work with these children, and these children who you didn't bring into this world, but you're their primary caregiver for that period of time, and it's remembering that you are a huge part of their journey. And when they come in every day to your centre, we don't know what's happened for them at home. We don't know what's going on in that outer world outside our centre. Sometimes we do, but most of the time we don't. And so we have such a responsibility when those children walk in to just be that loving, open environment where they can be themselves and they can just be free. But that goes for our kaiako as well. We have to create environments and teams where they too feel comfortable and safe, because otherwise there's just no point.
Yeah. So how many teachers do you look after in your current role?
Now, so when I planned the Christmas function at the end of last year, I planned for 100 kaiako. Not all of them are full-time, permanently employed. There's a lot of casual people as well. But I definitely planned for 100. I think it dropped down to about 85. But
who showed up, you mean, or
who accepted the invitation. But we have a huge amount of really dedicated permanent kaiako, and then we have this incredible group of casual people or part-time kaiako as well, and they are just so valued. We really love the work they do and appreciate what they do. They're just treated like everybody else, they come along to all the events, they come to professional development and staff meetings, and they're part of the whānau.
So how do you manage that? How do you, as a leader, and we both agree that it's important to look after your teachers, the people under you. How do you manage that task where 100 people, you've got permanent, you've also got part-time, you've got casual, but they all come up to you and go, I've got this issue at home, and then this other person's got health issues, and this other person's got, how do you?
Well, lucky for me, I don't have to manage them all directly.
Okay.
So I am very, very fortunate to have 5 really amazing centre managers who look after the 6 childcare centres that we have. So so there's me, and then there's my 5 managers, and then those 5 managers have a support network too of differing leadership positions within their centres. So there's a really great support network. But of course, if any person who's working for our centres has something going on and they don't feel comfortable talking to any of those people that are within their centre, there's an open line of communication directly to me, and they've all got my number or my email address, or they can come and visit me. And I think they know that. And I try and keep in touch with the centres, even though it's not always easy to get there, but they are all aware of who I am and where I am, so they can come.
Yeah, no, I think so. It's kind of like a pyramid, is it? Where so you look after the 5, and the 5 will look after
So we definitely do have I really dislike the word hierarchy, but there is one in place, which is essential to ensure that we are looking after our people and making sure that they know who they can go to. It's an important part of a business structure.
It makes sense. I mean, and it's not realistic for anyone to be able to manage 100 staff by themselves. So there needs to be some sort of structure in place.
And it's not healthy either. I think, if we're able to distribute the leadership load, it's much healthier. It also provides the opportunity for people to grow. So if we have a really strong leadership structure, it gives us the ability to empower people to grow into leadership positions. So I think that's really great to have as well.
And this was what you learnt when you were in Christchurch?
Christchurch was a little bit different. I'm just trying to think back, it seems like such a long time ago, but I did have leaders in place. But, it hasn't always been smooth sailing, and I've had to learn along the way of how to share the load and distribute the leadership. So there was a time where, as a leader, I was, I would have been quite happy to control everything. And sometimes, in fact, most of the time, that's not realistic, and we have to lean on other people, and that's actually a learning curve as part of being a leader, is learning to lean on other people,
learning to delegate,
delegate it out, because for me, certainly as a new leader, I wanted to make sure that I was able to prove myself and that I could do it. And so I got into this trap of, no, it's totally fine, I can do it.
Do everything.
I've got it under control. But in actual fact, I probably didn't have it under control all the time. And so I've had to learn, and I'm always learning, because there'll still be times where that part of me comes out.
I think the fear, the trick with delegating as well then is you want to make sure that you've got the right balance, right? You don't want to delegate too much and then you become totally hands off, and then it feels, and then the people are, underneath you feel like they're just being given work, they're not being supported, and that their superior is doing nothing.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And so I'll often refer to people who work with me as working alongside me, because we are all just doing the same thing. We just have different roles and responsibilities. But actually, at the end of the day, the foundation is that we're just wanting positive outcomes for children, and we're wanting, beautiful childcare centres that support that.
No, I can't agree more. And what you've just said, I think it's beautiful. I think it's the right approach, where together as a team, this is the direction we want to go. This is our aim, and this is what we want to do, and it's for our children and how we're going to make things better. You've got your part, I've got my part. We're working together and that's part of the delegation process.
Yeah.
But everyone's aware of what everyone's role plays, so they won't feel like I've been chucked this load and Aime is away doing nothing, and
That's
so therefore I
right.
feel stink. And
Yeah.
but yeah.
And then there'll always be, we don't ever want it to happen, but there will always be a situation where that person, specifically my role as General Manager of the Early Childhood Centres, there will be a time where the responsibility that I have, kicks in more so than ever, and I'm held accountable for something that's happening. It could be a major event. That's when that role becomes sorry, I'm not articulating that well. That leadership responsibility just sits where there's things that only I will be able to take accountability for, and that's okay. That's part of my job, and I understand that going into the role.
Yeah, the buck stops with you.
Yeah, pretty much.
I agree with that as well. I think to be an effective leader, you need to think like that. You need to think where everything's my fault. Because why I say that, and it's funny, even if it may not be, but that allows you to actually really look into things a bit deeper, and I'm trying to develop that as well, where even if I got into a car accident, for example, I'll be thinking, shit, I should have left the house half an hour earlier.
Yeah.
If you think about it, there will, if anything does go wrong, it's always a combination of things, and if you look into it and you go, if I implemented this earlier, and if I did it this way, and I had another mechanism to as a backup plan, and so on and so forth, then maybe this mess would not have happened. And
yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I think as an effective leader, you are always learning, and you're looking at things, and so when something does happen, exactly what you said, you're sort of thinking, well, how could I have supported that person to so that didn't happen? What could I have done? And you start to reflect on your own practice and what you're doing. And so, being an early childhood manager or leader or general manager in my case, we're still very much reflecting on what's happening. So at the end of every week, I'm reflecting on what happened, what didn't happen, what should have happened, and I think that that's so important, and we should never lose that. And so with teachers going through registration and, certification, that's such an important part of being a really good educator, is being able to reflect on everything and look at what you could do better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think normally when a disaster happens, it doesn't just happen out of the blue.
No.
You actually see little telltale signs along the way, and it happens to be that 1 out of 100 incident. But you get a couple of those.
Yeah.
And then if you were alert and aware and you dealt with it there and then, that 1 out of 100 incident may not have happened if you looked at the cues, the signs early on.
Totally, yeah. And we are constantly looking for ways to mitigate disasters happening and having those conversations, which is why leaders need to be meeting with their people more regularly, touching base with them, and again going back to getting to know people and what's going on for them, and being able to sort of put things in place before a disaster happens, especially with around staff conflict and things like that. Being engaged with your people, we know that there's a personality clash, and so what can we do to mitigate that from blowing
That's
up?
a prime example, right? They don't start off from day one arguing and punching each other, right? It's a little bit of a brush here or a snappy remark there, and then if you don't do anything about it, then it starts to fester and grow.
That's it. And the leaders have a responsibility to make sure that they do know what's going on in their centres. You can't just get into a leadership position. And I think there's one of the questions that I was asked, and I was like, that's interesting.
We're still stuck on question number 1, by the way.
Oh, are we still on question 1?
No. I think number 2. I'm not sure.
Oh, well, we're down, going down to, someone asked about getting into management, because but they're not too sure whether they're sick of being on the floor, or whether, they, how does that happen, and, for better pay and things. And so I reflected on this, because I thought, for me, everything has just been...
let me just... For the people watching, the question is about... one of the relievers asked, I want to get into management, but I wonder if it's because I'm getting sick of ECE and want to get off the floor. It's the only thing I can think of that will pay well, because anything else will mean starting at a lower salary. If I think this way, I'm sure there are others too, which means there are probably managers out there who probably lost their passion. I don't want to be judgmental, but the realities of life is such that I am seriously considering this. I'm sharing this as I would like to hear your thoughts and advice.
Excellent. So this really got me thinking, because with my leadership journey, it's not like I woke up one day and wanted to be a centre manager or a leader. It kind of just happened, and it's developed and evolved over years and years. And trust me, there have been times where I have thought that I've done the wrong thing and gone into the wrong career. But I did write down some notes about this question. So I just said, if you're thinking the pay in private ECE management is any better, then you need to do some serious research. Management is a journey, and so if you're going into it because you are thinking that you're going to get better pay, you probably will get better pay, but it's a job that has huge amount of responsibility, and not all centres are the same. So if you go into some private centres, and I have to be careful here, because we've got some really incredible ECE centres out there, and then we've got some centres that are really struggling. And I don't want to say that any centre's bad, because they are just struggling. They've lost their way. So if you wind up in a childcare centre in a management position, and the centre's not functioning very well, that buck stops with you. And so you might be being paid a really great wage, but the impact that has on you as a person and your family and the people that you're working with, it's not worth it. So when you are thinking about moving into leadership or management, it has to be more than money, because money really isn't the answer. And so you're better off to work your way through the ECE, through your career, taking those steps as they come to you. And I think what I reflected on with this question was, if that's where you're wanting to head, that's great, but you need to find a centre that is your place. So you can't truly be happy until you find a childcare centre that suits your philosophy, that shares your values, that you feel really great in. And when you are applying for positions at centres, you're asking questions like, is there room to grow here? Can I, I'm thinking management might be something I'm really into, because I really love the business side of things, because management isn't just sitting in an office on a computer checking Facebook. Actually there is so much more to management, and a lot of my management experience has been dealing with the ministry, dealing with ERO, helping people work through issues, dealing with the IRD, learning how to do a tax return, filing an RS7. There's honestly, there is just so many different things that come under management. So some centres have admin, some centres don't, because they can't afford it. So you are centre manager admin assistant, cook, counsellor, nurse, you're all these different things as a manager. So if you've lost your passion in ECE, I would challenge that. I don't think that your passion's gone at all. I think that you're working in the wrong environment, and you need to find a centre that actually fits with who you are as a person. If you're thinking management's great because you need more money and that you're wanting to get into it for money, you're thinking about it in the wrong way, and I don't think you'll truly be happy. You might get that paycheck every week. It might make it a bit easier for you to live or survive, but it's not going to bring you happiness. And you just get one shot at this, and so at this life. So, it's really, you should be happy. You should be doing something that makes you happy.
Yep.
So, I'm happy to talk to anybody about leadership and who's wanting to move into that role and supporting them in getting there, but make sure that you're doing it for the right reason.
Right reasons. Yep. You mentioned earlier about when you are applying for for positions, find out more about how do you do that, because you don't know, if you're going into a new center, how do you know for sure that it's the type of center that fits with your philosophy, that has the space for you to grow, and it's not just empty promises from the other side? Yeah,
totally. And I think that has been happening too, because centres are
can be so desperate struggling to just say whatever.
Yeah, I think that when you are going into the interview, you have a really clear understanding of who you are as an educator or a kaiako. What is it that is important to you? And taking the time you want to look around. Often, especially in the last few years, if I'm employing someone, I'm really wanting them to do a working interview. I'm quite happy to pay them to do a working interview. It takes a little bit of time. If they're registered, the police clearance is part of their certification, so we're lucky there. But they need to fill out some paperwork and things. Happy to pay for a working interview in order to get the right person. For you as the employee, you just need to be really clear and understand what it is that you're wanting. Does the centre look the way you want it to look? Are the people that are working there, do you get a good vibe? Go with your gut. It's like when we talk to parents about looking around a childcare centre. How do you feel inside about it? Does it sit well with you? Does it make you happy? So with regards to false promises, I've heard that too. So I've heard, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. Then they get in there and they start working, and they're still waiting for that meeting with their manager that they were promised. They're still waiting for non-contact. They've been there for 2 months and they've had no release time. They're still, waiting for that pay review that they were meant to have after 90 days. There's those things. Now, you can't predict that type of thing is going to happen. But again, you have the power to say this is not okay. And right now you have more power than ever, because right now we're in the middle of a teacher shortage, and so you have the ability to really design your position to suit you. This is where relieving is quite good, and somebody asked a question about relieving. I think it was one of the... Number six, was it?
I'll just read it out.
Yeah.
I feel some teachers think that I am taking the easy way out by being a reliever, and I question this myself too sometimes. Do you think relievers are taking the easy way out?
No way, not at all. It is such a tough job, moving from centre to centre. The benefit that I do see with relieving, and I'm not saying in any way that everybody should go relieving, not at all, but one of the benefits is that you're able to work in centres and different centres and find what's happening out there, and more often than not find a centre that actually really fits well with you, that you love going back to, and you end up ringing ringing Caleb back and saying, hey, I really love this centre, I want to do more work there, so if they have another shift, please put me there. So you have this really wonderful advantage of trying before you buy, which I love.
I see where you're going. It opens up your eyes, isn't it? And by going into all these different centers, you tend to get a good idea of when I do go back into full-time teaching, this is the type of center that I know I want to get into,
Yeah.
in terms of what they see from the staff, in terms of how they deal with the parents and how they look after the children. So yeah, I suppose I do get what you mean. I also do think, however, relieving is not for everyone. And why I say that is there's pros and cons. I think, generally speaking, I think being a reliever, you can feel a bit lonely. You enter into a new environment almost quite regularly. 1 week here, 1 week there, depending on your shifts. But every time you go into a new center, then it's like all the staff members there, they will have their own clique. So there's no sort of camaraderie that you can have lunch with someone and you can chit chat about the weekend and how their kid is doing at school. It's just sort of like you have it by yourself. And if you do have it with someone else, it's always a very superficial, hi, how's it going? And no one really kind of wants to form a deep relationship with you because they know that you'll be gone tomorrow, next week, whatever.
Yeah, and that must be so tough. And so I really have so much respect for people who are out there relieving and who are doing an incredible job. The casual relievers that certainly we've had have been great, and we couldn't survive without them. We have a really large cohort of permanent staff members. I think there's about 65, from 65 to 70 off the top of my head, within our centres, and they've all got big chunks of annual leave that they need to take, and sick leave and all sorts of things. So we rely heavily on the university relieving pool, but then also we have a couple of agencies that we work with too. So it's such an important role that you have as a relief teacher. So no, I do not think that you're taking the easy way out. I think it's actually more difficult for exactly what you've just said, Caleb. You are coming into a new environment almost every day, and you are unable to really form those relationships with people until you've been there regularly, and that's tough. That's really tough. It's a lonely place to be, but of huge advantage for you if you are eventually looking to get back into permanent employment. Then you've had a real insight into what's really great, what fits with you, what brings you joy, and what doesn't.
And if you take that learning, that experience into going to a lot of different centers and finding out what you like, what suits you, then I think that does make you a better teacher when you then go into a full-time sort of position. You know what you're looking for, and you know that the center that you do find is one that you can grow into. I think that's
absolutely,
that is really important
for sure.
Right. Well, since we're going to the questions, I'll go with question 4.
Okay.
As a student, I was very excited getting into ECE. But now I feel weighed down and I'm having thoughts leaving ECE. I'm not sure what to do. Any advice?
Yeah.
So I'm sure this is quite a common sort of question.
Yeah, unfortunately it is, and just makes me so sad because I am so passionate about early childhood education, and I've had an incredible career where I've just been able to grow, but it hasn't always been an easy road, and I think now even more than ever, our people are really struggling out there, and this just makes me so incredibly sad. And so I sort of reflected on this a little bit and wrote like a wee note, and just I've already kind of touched on this. It's about finding the place for you. So if you're losing your passion and you are thinking that this is not the career for you, I would challenge that, and I would say to you that you are yet to find the place that makes you feel at home, and that responsibility is on you. And it's not like you're short on options, because there are plenty of options out there, but it is about finding the place that makes you happy, and that's what you deserve. So I would be so sad to see you leave early childhood education as a profession because of a couple of bad experiences. You need to own that, and do it for yourself. Go out there, find a centre that fits with who you are as a person, that shares the same values as you, and a centre and a team that empowers you to be the best teacher you can be. And I don't mean to sound airy-fairy, but it is coming around to that. It's about taking ownership over yourself and taking responsibility for your well-being. Because even though we have lots of things in place in our centres, and certainly at the moment we're really thinking about well-being and keeping our people safe and healthy, but ultimately you're responsible for your own well-being. This profession is so important, and I think that if you just stick with it for a little while longer, there's going to be a big shift in early childhood education. There has to be, and I think there's a lot of us that are pushing for more positive change, and at a government level, which will definitely come down to pay parity, but it is more than that. It's about the government taking a really good hard look at what's happening in early childhood centres, and positive advocates, and I believe that I'm trying to be a positive advocate for ECE. People like me, we're really trying to put pressure on centres who aren't functioning as well as they should be, and management and leadership that isn't supporting our people. And so there's some great work happening out there. So stick with it and find your place.
My general thoughts on this is the task of looking after our little children, the 0 to 5-year-olds, is quite massive. We're talking about on a national scale, yeah, and the number of teachers that are out there, we're going through a teacher shortage, and it's, when you look at it, it's kind of insufficient to cater to all these 0 to 5-year-olds, and to do it to a quality job on it. So what can be done? The only thing I can really say, without being able to go into details, is that there needs to be some sort of a support structure mechanism. Like, I know you don't like to use the word hierarchy, but I do think if there was a way where, because I feel the government, they do want to try to do the right thing, but I think what they're trying to do is putting on a lot of rules, and it makes it harder. But I think instead of rules on what needs to be done, I think if there was a support structure that went, okay, this, we want to try to create a better outcome, and this is sort of how we would recommend how it can be done, so it can take certain workloads off and make the environment a lot better, and the eventual outcome is a better quality result for the children, and this is what we propose. I think I think that may be one solution to
Yeah. Look, I've thought long and hard about this, and I often think it's so tough, and there's really no easy answer to how we're going to fix the problems in ECE. It's not an overnight fix. It didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to be fixed overnight.
Correct. No, I totally agree.
But we need to ensure that we don't have a major disaster where the government are then the ambulance at the bottom of the hill. We need to fix this now. And so in order to, my thoughts around this, and I talked to NZEI about this earlier in the week, that the attested rates need to raise.
Go up.
They need to go up.
Yep.
So basically what's happened is over the however many years we've been in the funding freeze, I think it's pretty close to 11 years.
Sounds about right.
So we've been in a funding freeze for 11 years, and what's happened is that we've continued to build childcare centres. We've continued to build them. We're training less people in the early childhood programs in the universities.
So the supply is down, but
we
the
can't
demand
staff
is...
them.
Yeah.
They say the demand's high, but we need to maybe stop building centres. This is just my own personal opinion. So this is nobody else's, just my own, and I own this.
Yeah.
We need to maybe just put the brakes on building more centres. Focus on the ones that we have. Try and raise the quality in these centres. What's happened is that we're survivors. Early childhood is we've survived. We've survived a funding freeze for 11 years. How have we done that? We've just coped. So, we're not getting any more money from the government. Okay, well, we'll just have to keep going. So the government see we're thriving. However many centres we continue to build every year. But we're not thriving. We're actually in big trouble. And so, we need to raise the attested rates. They need to go up by about 20%. That's my calculation on the salary benchmarking I've recently done. So they need to go up by about 20%. So we changed the attested rates that we attest to in the RS7. Then obviously bulk funding needs to go up to match that. And I'm currently working on a figure around that. The reason that I'm doing this work and doing it in my own time, nobody's paying me to do this, is because I really want to have a figure to take to the minister. I want to say it's going to cost you 500 million or however much it's going to cost. I don't know that figure yet, but I will definitely get it. So I need to create a really clear and intelligent business plan. And it's not just, it won't just come from me. There'll be lots of other voices in there as well. But it's about giving them a document this is real data, and the benchmarking that I did on the salaries was real people giving me their, sharing their really private salary information with me, and that to me was so valuable. So that's my plan. That's what I think I'm going to do is get this document together, get a figure, and tell them how I think we can fix. So that fixes the salary side of things, the pay. People get paid better, they're recognised more for a huge qualification that they've spent thousands of dollars on. So they're paid better, so already morale is going to rise.
Yep.
Then what it does with centres who aren't functioning very well, who aren't treating their people very well, look, they've got no choice but to pay these attested rates if they want to receive funding. And funding at the higher level.
Yep.
So automatically productivity has to, will go up because people feel better. But if they're still not being treated well from above, then that's a major problem. And so that's when we then have to change the way in which we regulate or look at our centres. So that comes down to Aero and Ministry. That comes down to them looking at different ways in which we're supporting our centres. And people whistleblowing. If you're not happy or if there's something going on, start talking to people. You have the power to tell people what's happening for you. and to walk away. The centres can't function without their people. And so if you are being treated in a really bad way, it's your responsibility to walk away. And there are lots of people that would welcome you with open arms into their family. So you don't need to stay in a place that makes you feel bad. And these centres will have to fall into line and start treating their people better and raising the work conditions. So part of that also, which will then come next with the government, is, and it's in the strategic plan, to change the ratios. To change those. So we're at a 1 to 10 and a 1 to 5 at the moment. To change those to be more kinder to our people. Putting
1 to 6, 1 to 3?
Yeah, totally. Definitely the infant and toddler ratio should be 1 to 3, without a doubt. And yes, I would absolutely agree 1 to 6 for our over 2s.
I think people try to go 1 to 8 and 1 to 4, but
it's still a huge amount of pressure to put on people when we're dealing with these really little people, and being a mum of 2 toddlers, I know how complicated they are and how much time they need.
I think the 1 to 10 and the 1 to 5, I think only teachers will understand this, but that really just puts you in a babysitting position. Make your maintenance,
Totally.
Putting out fires, and just dealing with mess everywhere.
Yes.
Whereas when you go to if it gets lesser, 1 to 8, 1 to 4, then you can probably a little bit more of that quality time. If you go even lesser than that, 1 to 6, 1 to 3, even better, then you can actually really start to actually focus on more meaningful interactions, more meaningful sort of
Yeah,
learnings.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that there will be lots and lots of people who feel exactly the same way, and getting into early childhood education will be so much more attractive, knowing that you're getting into this career path where you are genuinely making a difference. Because at the moment, in a lot of centres who are just working to rule in order to pay their people better, which is great, because hey, look, I want to offer you this salary because I really love you and value you, but unfortunately I can't offer better ratios.
Yeah.
Because I need to be paying these salaries. So there's some amazing centres out there who are stuck in this awful position. And I've spoken to centre owners who are working for less than $5 an hour. That's people that own the centres, and so not all centre owners are in it
Swimming
for
in
the
cash.
money. No,
Yeah.
definitely not. And I think that that's a really important thing that people don't understand either. Not all centre owners are absolutely raking it in, So there's some really passionate, amazing centre owners out there who are doing it tough in order to keep their centres running, keep their staff in there.
Yep.
So there's lots that needs to happen, and it's it's not going to happen overnight, but we really need to be advocating more positively. And I know that we've got horror stories, and I know that there's a really dark cloud over ECE at the moment, but if we start really promoting and people being fired up about it and being really positive, it's got to overcome all of this.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, it's not a complicated. It is a complicated issue. It didn't happen overnight. It took a while to get to where we are, and it'll probably take a while to get out of it. I agree 100%, and I do think the solution would be a combination of short-term, medium-term, and long-term solutions. And I think a lot of what's being done at the moment by the ministry, by the government is short-term stuff. And I have nothing wrong, I think it's great because I think it's not just a one pill solution. There you go, don't bother me anymore. You're sorted. It takes a number of things to sort of look at the whole issue as a whole. But what I see is they've implemented some of these things, and some of the mid and long term will probably require a bit more thought and it's to be implemented. But they've implemented the short term, which is easier, and then they get bombarded with how dare they do this, and then they get. So I also do think that the people in charge have got a pretty difficult task at hand.
Definitely.
No matter what you do, you're going to get complaints no matter what.
Yeah, and that's in any whether you're in government or you're the owner of a centre or the manager of a centre. Yeah, you'll never get it right for everybody, And so I'm a firm believer, and I know positivity doesn't save the day every day. But when I was awarded the ASG National Excellence in Teaching Award, look, that was actually initially came as quite a shock. But I saw it as such a positive thing. And it wasn't until I was in Wellington that I discovered that I was the first ECE professional to actually be awarded in the last 2 years. And there should be 2 ECE professionals receiving the award, and I was the only one this year. Really interesting. And so...
so the other one went to a... just
primary.
So how many primary teachers?
So there were 3 winners in the primary sector, 2 in secondary, and myself in ECE.
So there should be 2.
Yeah, and last year there was no ECE people. And I did ask the question and I was given the answer, which I won't share because I don't think it's helpful. But someone did ask one of these questions, how does one win an ASG Teaching Award and what's the criteria? You know what? If I answer it honestly, and having been through the process and still going through, all the things that happen afterwards, it's about being true to yourself. And I was nominated because someone believed that I'd made such a difference in their career and had such a positive impact on them as a teacher that they felt that I needed to be nominated for this award. And so I didn't know that at the time. It wasn't until a lot later. You then are contacted by ASG who tell you that you've been nominated.
Right.
So there's so many thousand teachers that get nominated every year. And you're asked to do a submission. Part of that is writing an essay, answering some questions, and there's a few other things that go along with that. And then you find out if you make it to the second stage.
Right.
And at that stage, for me, I was moving from Unitech to the University of Auckland while this was all happening.
Right.
So I did my submission and then didn't think anything of it. And then I got a phone call to tell me that I'd made it through to the second stage. And so they have a deadline. You have to write another essay. You have to do a 10-minute video, and they ask you questions. And it's a bit like a podcast, but with video.
Yep. So it was all done over Skype.
And then you submit it. And then there's some other questions that you have to ask. And so then that all goes to a panel in Australia. And a panel of lots of different people, so not just people in education, but people in business and stakeholders for ASG as well. And so then it was just before Christmas that I actually had a phone call from Melbourne to tell me that I'd won the award. And I was so blown away because, to be honest, I don't think that I'm anything special, So I really see my role as collaborative, and I see that the work that I do alongside some really incredible people is, just part of that journey. So I was really blown away, not really sure how to feel about it, but went to Wellington, proudly accepted the award on behalf of early childhood educators everywhere, you know, and the more I'm still reflecting on it, the more I reflect on it, the more I just see it as such a positive thing for ECE. So, you know, how you go about it is that if you feel like someone's doing something really amazing in the profession, you're working with someone who has really made a difference in your career, or you can see them making a huge difference, you just nominate them. Go on the website. I don't know what the website is, but it's if you just type in ASG National Teaching Awards, it'll pop up, and you'll be able to nominate people. And I think that, you know, next year, I would love to see 2 ECE professionals from New Zealand. You know, if anybody needs help with their submission, just talk to me. But it is about being yourself. It's about being professional, being humble, and just being genuinely you. Because the other people who were awarded the awards, to me, when I sat and looked around the room at Parliament and looked at these incredible educators, I am not going to lie, part of me went, what am I doing here? These people are so amazing, such exceptional educators. Why am I here? But I've had to rein those thoughts back in and think, you know, someone thought that I was valuable enough to nominate for this award. Someone felt that I changed their career path so dramatically that I needed to be thanked for that, and that just absolutely blew me away. So I did it, you know, I accepted it for her, I accepted it for our entire profession, and yeah, I'm just so honoured to have been awarded such an award. And so next year I definitely want to see 2 ECE professionals there, and I will be at the lunch next year, hopefully to support to support anybody who's nominated or who has been awarded.
No, cool. Well, there's another question. You mentioned that you work with the youngest enrolled university students. I presume this is the 0 to 5-year-olds who are going to go to university, right? Okay.
So this is my clever way of, you know, so the university, especially the University of Auckland, look, it's one of the top universities in the world, in fact, number 1 in New Zealand, as far as I'm aware. And I'm super proud to work for UOA. What an incredible organisation. Blows my mind every day to be working with some of the best academics in the world. Not that I have a lot to do with them, but I stare at them in total awe as they walk around. And so this comment that I made when I was interviewed for the university bulletin thing was a bit, you know, a bit of a very true comment, but I know that often people don't see early childhood education as important, and often forget about the incredibly hard work that we all do within this profession. And so I said that I believe that we are essentially taking care of the youngest university students, and we are, because we have 6 university-operated early childhood centres on our campus, and there's over 400 tamariki attending our centres at any, you know, given time, and they essentially are enrolled at the University of Auckland. And so,
essentially they are, aren't they?
And so what we want is those 400 plus children, actually thousands of children who will come through our centres every year. We want them to come back when they've graduated from high school, and we want them to go to our law school, become doctors, become amazing engineers and scientists. So I firmly believe that I want people to see the tamariki that attend our centres as those amazing professionals and academics in, you know, 20 odd years time. So
Well, I think I I think the general perception is that, you could be right in a sense. The general perception is that people don't really view early childhood education as significant as a respectable kind of degree. But I have I'm speaking from real. I have a friend of mine who I studied together with, who basically left. He was studying engineering together with me in Auckland University, and he decided to not practice as an engineer, but to study early childhood. And I think that sends a really powerful message because, to him, he's a male, by the way. He decided that work was more meaningful. And it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's when you think about it, you're actually directly impacting someone's life.
Yes.
For good or for bad. You are in that position, and that's meaningful compared to, I don't know, crunching numbers on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's taken me a long time and development over my long career to understand that fully too. And people don't understand what happens in the early childhood profession and the journey that these children take. And my husband and I are foster parents as well. And so I'll often talk to people about, attachment theory and things. We've had quite a few foster children come through our home, and attachment is one of those things that we need to establish really quickly with them. And in the early childhood environment, we have children coming from all different walks of life, and we have to form an attachment with them in a really healthy way. And that is the biggest gift we can give a child, is healthy attachment. If they have that, then we know that as they progress through life, if they can attach to another person in a really healthy way, they're going to be absolutely fine. But what people don't understand, and what happens in early childhood centres, we get these children from a really, really young age, sometimes 6 weeks. And, we're encouraging them to look after themselves, develop independent skills, and, toilet and eat and self-regulate, form relationships with not only adults but other people, other children, visitors into the centre. Everything that we do with these children for the first 6 years of their life, and I say 6 years because they can stay with us till they're 6, is setting them up for their adult life. So imagine if early childhood education didn't exist. These children would be going straight into primary school, which they used to. And, our primary teachers, who are already under pressure, would be under even more pressure.
Yeah.
But we'd be also setting a whole lot of really unstable adults who just have not had those important foundations.
Yeah. They call it the foundation year because I think foundation-wise, it sets the children up mentally and emotionally, how they choose to respond, how they behave, and if that is put into place properly, where they feel secure and comfortable, then I think they'll be okay, in terms of how they deal with uncertainty, how they deal with new situations and all that. They won't just respond aggressively or violently. It is really the foundation years.
Yeah, it is. And it's so complex. There is so much to it. And I mean, gosh, I could talk for hours on it, but it is such a complex time in their lives. And that's when the really dedicated and passionate teachers are able to identify what's happening, and as part of that growth, they're observing, they're creating individual plans for children. It's so much more than just playing and putting out fires. You know, they're looking at these children at a much deeper level. Why is this happening for this child, and how can we support this child to do that? And I've recognised this child is really special in this area, and what can we do with that, and who do we talk to? And, you know, these dedicated professionals are always looking to push these children to achieve more and to really support them in their growth. And I think that is just so valuable. You can't put a dollar amount on that. This is big stuff that we're doing at, you know, in those first 6 years.
And for that to happen, I really think the ratios need to come down.
Yeah.
Because if it's high, you're in firefighting mode. You can't.
Correct.
You can't go deep into a child's mind and try to help nurture, nourish it.
And we're missing things. You know, we would be missing things, quite valuable things. And so, yeah, that is right. The ratios do need to be looked at and looked at sooner than 10 years, because that was the issue with the strategic plan. We were a little bit excited about getting this plan from the ministry, or from the government, sorry, and then more disappointed when we saw that all the issues that really impact us right now, that are causing us the biggest grief, have all been pushed out to the furthest point in the strat plan, instead of, you know, bringing them a little bit closer and working towards them in a really healthy way. So that was a bit of a shock, and I would really love to see these things happening sooner than later.
Yeah. Cool. No, I think that is pretty much all the time we have for
Great.
But hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate. I really enjoyed talking with you, actually.
Thanks for having me. I hope I didn't waffle on too much.
No, not at all. Not at all. Thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thanks.